What is up, guys? It is that time again, round 18 of our first Formula One 2019 season. We are coming off a bit of a disappointment, having our front wing busted off in Japan. Felt like we could have placed a lot better, but we are headed into the final stretches of the season. A short little tour of the Americas, Mexico this week, the US and Brazil, and then the season finale out in Abu Dhabi, and see where we will come out in our Drivers' Championship. But here we are, popped up in the garage. Take a peek at our messages. Our only development is completed, so we got a little bit extra rear downforce and a fairly dry weekend coming. So we've got a fully sunny qualifying session, nice warm tires, and then a cloudy to sunny session for the race. We completed our last rivalry against Lance Stroll, so we're going to go ahead and stick with the racing points, but go up against the number one driver, Sergio Perez, which has a very strong AI in this game. So he should certainly be a challenge, since we are just below them in the current development rankings. We've only got a couple of pieces left to adapt before the end of the season. We will have no problem doing that, I don't believe. And it looks like Alpha has jumped just back ahead of us in the development chart. But without further ado, let's get ready to head out to qualifying.
Welcome back to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. It's a circuit that has a huge amount of history, and I'm sure we'll be staging a fantastic qualifying session today. It always looked like the kind of track that asks an awful lot of the rear tyres, such as the frequency of low-speed exits.
No matter how good a driver is at managing their throttle application to limit rear slip, they can't always overcome a car that's inherently bad at looking after its rear tyres. Here we have a lot of low-speed corner exits, which means a whole load of energy, heat and tyre wear.
Alright, here we are on the track for our first flying lap and a little bit of a tour of the Mexico circuit. So we are down the grid and down this long first stretch, hit that first DRS zone. Pretty good rundown, excellent overtaking zone as we get ready to break into a sharp 90-degree right-hander, followed by a 90-degree left-hander, followed by a 90-degree right-hander. So a little bit of a chicane section. You lose a lot of speed, and it's really about carrying flow through that, but you're on to the next long straight, next best overtaking zone, another DRS zone. And now we're into a much slower section. Another tight left-hander followed by a right-hander after that long straight. A little short run into this double apex right-hander. They kind of square it off. And now we are on the throttle through one of those slow acceleration zones. A little bit of a braking into that left-hander, and we are into the fast S's section. Flat through those first two, a little bit of a lift to get set up for the next two, and then we are down this long sweeping back straight here as we get ready to slam on the brakes and enter the stadium section. A nice tight technical bit of sector 3. Not a lot of overtaking opportunities here. You just got to kind of keep your nose clean, get yourself set for this tight start of the right-hander that opens up into the final turn of the main straight there. And that is your tour of the first lap. So we went straight back to back for another lap. We've got about 6-7 tenths of improvement here. We're sitting P3 at the moment, but we're very early in the Q1 session. We're just kind of seeing what kind of rhythm we can establish. I'm not worried about us making it out of Q1 or necessarily even Q2, so we're really getting a feel for the track. We cross the line, go up into P2 by less than a tenth of a second there, but as the qualifying session ends, we are P5, about a quarter of a second off of the fastest time, but Q1, not a super representative time. So here we are jumping into Q2 on our first flying lap, finishing it up on our medium tires. We're going to see if we can't make it through on those mediums, have a better choice. We go back to back on the flying laps. We are about half a second up here. Little bit of wheel spin and oversteer. We lose a fair chunk of time through there, but we are going to go a little bit faster as our final corner is a little bit better. Go almost a little over a half second better. Currently P7 on there. We would make it through to Q3. But we were sitting P9 as we put the slop tires on and went out and dropped to about P11 as the last few cars crossed, as the checkered flag is waving. So as we finish up this lap, that will be our best time, and looks like we're going to be starting off the soft tires regardless. But As you can see, those soft tires about a full second faster already than those medium tires. So we go through and we cross the line. P2 on the grid, just behind Max Verstappen. So we are pretty comfortably into Q3. We'll see if we can replicate that on our Q3 lap. We go back to back. We set a decent first lap, only P7, but we are purple through our first 2 sectors. So we are really steaming along here. Max Verstappen again setting the tone there. We are full 1.3 seconds up on our old time though. We cross the line. P2 less than a tenth behind Verstappen, and he put up one more lap at the end. We are less than 2 tenths back. We are on the front row of the grid again. One of the few times we've done it, but really having this car's kind of feel come around to that more nose planted feel really helped us out, and I'm putting in a lot better lap times with it.
Formula One may have been absent from Mexico for 23 years, but after 2015's triumphant return, it was as if we'd never been away. In Mexico, a Grand Prix is more than just a race. It's a celebration of speed and of bravery. There's nothing quite like the atmosphere in the stadium today. They'll be drowning out the cars with their noise as they make their way through on lap 1. At 2,285 metres above sea level, the thin air of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez poses a unique challenge, not just to a driver's skill, but to the efficiency of their engines as well. 17 corners make up a lap of this 2.6-mile circuit, and you can expect incredible speeds in excess of 220 miles per hour, and overtaking too into the hard braking zones of turns 1 and turn 4. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Why don't we kick off by discussing Max Verstappen? That was a great win in the last race. Can they keep that momentum going this weekend?
It's always nice to come into a Grand Prix weekend on a high, but your expectations are based much more on your practice and qualifying runs. So it's the momentum from those sessions that they'll be hoping to carry into the race today.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he starts from pole position, and Oldtimer completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Hamilton, Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, and Leclerc, Weber, Gasly, Raikkonen and Sergio Perez, Vettel, Norris, George Russell and Albon, Grosjean, Sainz, Lance Stroll and Kevin Magnussen. Hülkenberg and Devon Butler starts from the back of the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
Okay, the run into turn 1 isn't too long, so the pack will be bunched up. Take care.
You see, Jeff, that's where you're wrong. It is a decent run into turn 1. There's going to be a fair bit of slipstreaming, and our natural not great starts. We have okay starts, but not great starts. We've been typically losing a position is going to put us into a little bit of trouble, probably. The default strategy was having us look to do a 2-stopper, but with our personalized wear based on our practice programs, we should be able to make a 1-stopper work the softs onto the mediums and hopefully get a softer tire going. Here we are at 5 red lights, sitting on the grid a little long. The lights are out, and we are a little slow off the start. As you see Verstappen pulling away from us, and the P3 car, Lewis Hamilton, goes by us. We are going to go ahead and slot in there, secure the outside as the other Mercedes of Valtteri pulls up along the inside, but we are taking the outside of that first corner so we can have the inside of this next corner and then cut across the apex and kind of squeeze him out. So we managed to hold P3. We only lost 1 position. Leclerc managed to get through Bottas through that sector as well, so he is up into P4. And now it is time to just kind of settle into a rhythm here. We're still running in the hot lap mode, so we're really burning some of that excess energy off to try and manage it around the 50% mark. Typically a good place to do it before we start to dial it back, but we want to get some temperature into these tires and see if we can stay with this lead group. We've definitely got the 1-lap pace. Let's see if we have the race pace to do it. But so far they're stretching out a little bit, but we're still within touching distance at the early stages. The heavy fuel load means You got to kind of readjust to where your braking points are. A lot of the practice sessions, you're not running quite a heavy fuel load, so what you're thinking is going to be a stopping point is not exactly where it is, so you have to kind of definitely feel it out. But we cross line, we're still within a second of Hamilton in front of us, and obviously Verstappen up in front, fresh off a win in the Japan race. That Red Bull is certainly coming along, but you see Hamilton getting the slipstream, getting a little bit by Verstappen into turn one, but he gets it back, so they are going to fight side by side through these corners. That is going to give us a great opportunity to kind of catch up, so we're able to dial back our ERS deployment, start saving some of that energy so that once a DRS becomes available and we're within range, we can have a good attack at this group. Hamilton has a little bit of a lockup into that turn there. He is falling back. We actually have to lift getting on the power there, otherwise we were going to run into the back of him as Verstappen took that place back. But the more they squabble in front of us, it allows us to stay in range when DRS becomes active. But through these S sections, it's very tough to follow closely. You can see how much understeer I'm getting through that dirty air, taking the downforce off of our front wing. So we're having to lift through the throttle of that section a lot. It's really just a matter of staying alive through Sector 2 to set yourself up to close the gap in Sector 3, to set yourself up for that DRS zones in Sector 1, especially that main front straight as you cross the start-finish line. But a decent exit off of that final corner allows us to stay in the slipstream of Lewis Hamilton here. And you can see we are starting to pull away a bit and create a little bit of a three-car breakaway from the fourth place car of Leclerc and Ricciardo behind him. And there's a huge fight of a couple alphas as well, it looks like. 3 wide into turn 1. Not a safe move to make. We were a little too far back through the first 2 DRS zones in order to utilize it, but again, they are kind of scrapping in front of us, and we're able to reel them in through this slower sector here. And just trying to find some clean air for the front wing. But we're going to go ahead and hop ahead to lap 5. Hamilton has gotten through Verstappen, but he's going to go ahead and make a move. We've got DRS. We are closing up on that group. He is not quite fully through there, but they are side by side. That's going to give us a great opportunity through this next DRS zone. Looks like Verstappen's going to have the DRS. Hamilton is going to be slow. We are going to pick one to run through, pick up a bit of a slipstream, but we are kind of pinched off, not enough of a doorway to outbrake, so we're just going to kind of settle in, not make any daring maneuvers that'll cost us a front wing, as Hamilton's able to hold off Verstappen through DRS zone 2. You can see with the amount of slipstream we're getting, we're able to run in the low ERS deployment to conserve a lot of battery charge, so that when we do go to make a move, we're able to turn that baby way up and get as much power running through those rear wheels as we can and get a good run down the straight. But here we are closing up again through Sector 3. A little bit of a bump over that curbing unsettled the car. Had to kind of make a bit of an adjustment to keep the car from spinning. Nearly clipped that bollard at the end of the second to last corner there, but so far that bollard is still alive, and now we are cranking up that ERS deployment. We're within DRS range. We open that rear wing, hop on the slipstream of Verstappen. We are closing up on him pretty quickly. 212 miles an hour might hit 211, but there we are around the outside of that braking zone. Typically you want to move to the inside on a braking zone to make an overtake, but the way these corners chain together, I found good success going to the outside of the braking zone there. So we are pretty cleanly by him. Again, that classic pinching him off through that next maneuver allows us to create a little bit of separation. He's still right there though, but we are starting to break away from that group with the Ferrari of Leclerc. Another bit of little wheel spin there coming out of that corner. And now into the S's section. Now we have a bit of a more clean air on the front wing, so we're able to hustle it on these softer tires as we start to burn that fuel load a little bit more and more. Here you can see Lewis Hamilton right in front of us. Verstappen is still staying in touch as we break into the stadium section. A little bit of a lockup on that front left as we turn in. Luckily we were able to set our Q2 time on these tires with only with only one lap on them, so they have a little bit of extra life instead of the way we've typically been running Q2, which is running 2 laps per set of tires. So it gives them a little extra life as we're lap 7 here, and we want to work our way through that one-stop strategy. Verstappen got a little bit of a run on us. We were getting ready to defend the inside, but once I saw he wasn't going to have enough of a run to catch us, I moved back to the normal racing line before hitting the braking zone, so it was legal. If I had made that move while under braking, it would have been very questionable, and if they were real-life stewards, I probably would have gotten into a little bit of trouble. But we managed to hold Verstappen off through that second DRS zone, and now that we are running through this slow sector, turn that ERS deployment way down because it's not a big benefit to us, and just keep managing that energy through these slower sections so we can make sure we have good battery store for the long straights. We can crank that way up and get good power down to the wheels. But we are able to close up on Hamilton there and set ourselves up hopefully through Sector 3 to maybe get a good run on him down the front straight, and probably for the first time all season take P1 on pure pace alone. I believe our last race at Russia, our last podium rather, at Russia, we had P2, but we were never really in contention for P1 aside from the first lap.
Check your MFD for a new strategy option.
You see a new strategy, 2-stopper? No, we're going to stick with our 1-stopper. We've got a good run on Hamilton here, DRS open. Verstappen's picking a good slipstream. He's going to try and follow us through.
Clear.
Basically same time on the brakes, but we go long around the outside, and we are cleanly by Lewis Hamilton there. And luckily, since it's 2 DRS zones back to back, we've kept the position and the DRS. But right as we make that pass, VSC is out with Kimi Räikkönen retiring. So we have to slow down that pace, keep that time delta in the green, but not so slow that these other cars are really going to reel us in. So you have to kind of balance through that sector. If you go over your delta, you have a couple seconds to slow back down and get your delta back into the green. So you have to be very careful, and it's important to get right up on that edge so you're not losing too much on-track time. Now at this stage, I did think that if the VSC stayed longer around when I was in the pit, I might have grabbed a second set of softs, but you see we just clipped the delta, less than a tenth on the margin there as the green flag is waved. But we do have Verstappen and Hamilton right on our tail as they are setting us up for a little bit of trouble down this front straight, but massive wheel spin out of that exit. Yellow flags ahead of us, not a great exit. So they are going to get great DRS on us. Hamilton's got a good run. He is past us. Verstappen is going 3 wide. He's thinking about it. He's going to tuck in next to Hamilton. We are going to pinch him against the apex there and hold him off. So we are back down to P2. Just a bit of bad luck. The VSC coming out did not really allow us great timing to make any gap in Sector 3 to get some breathing room through that first DRS zone. But, you know, we got to run P1 on our own pace alone, so I feel pretty good about that. But we are slotted back into P2 behind Lewis Hamilton. It is lap 9 here. We're pretty clean through the S's. A little bit of a bobble coming out last corner, clipping the curbs back down into the brakes for the stadium section. A little too late, a little bit of a lockup on the entry to that corner, so that allows Verstappen to go down the inside of us. We kind of cut the corner, otherwise he would have smashed into the side of us, and I was trying to avoid that contact there. A little bit more of a lockup into that last corner there. And we are going to go ahead and jump ahead. Lap 14, Verstappen and Hamilton have already dived into the pits. So we really pushed these tires. You can see it just skidding around the corners. But we managed to survive the lap in P1. Leclerc has made a pit stop already onto a set of soft tires. He went softs to softs, so I'm assuming that he is going to have to do a 2-stop. So you see where he comes out and where we come out. You see Hamilton goes through. See the blue dot now as we're heading towards the pit exit. Ricardo is closing up on us, so we are on the throttle there. Vettel just coming out, staying behind us. So we're able to get out pretty quick. So we jump ahead a couple laps. Start of lap 17, we've reeled Ricciardo back in, got some temperature into our tires finally. And we are able to get DRS make a pretty clean pass. Now, thanks to our tire wear characteristics and how we've managed them throughout this race, our strategy allows us to be running on the faster tire through this sector. Most other one-stoppers went softs onto the hards, so while they're going to have a little bit of extra life in that tire towards the end, they don't have quite the raw pace that I'm able to have on these mediums. It just took us a lap or two to get temperature into these mediums to where we could really challenge the already warmed up hards of Ricciardo, who we made that pass through, and now we are starting to reel in Hamilton in P3. Like I said though, Leclerc, who is currently just in front of him, went softs onto softs, so he's going to have to make another stop to put on either the medium or the hards to the end of the race. So effectively we are running P3 right now. I believe Verstappen is still out ahead. You can see once we got heat in those tires with the lighter fuel load, we are purple through sector 1 and 2. We'll see what we can do through sector 3. We might be able to snag a fastest lap so far of the GP. And with the fastest lap at the end of the race, if you have the fastest lap, it's a bonus point. And there we go. We set fastest lap
of the race.
just inside the upper 119s. A decent run, and we've got DRS now on Hamilton as we get a great exit. So we are going to slip to the outside into the braking zone there. Our patented tried and true move, let him have the inside of turn 1, but we take the inside of turn 2 and then really make him edge out into that right-hander of turn 3. And we're able to hop on the throttle again and start to create a little bit of gap and start chasing down old boy Charles Leclerc. So we'll see if we can catch him before he needs to make his pit stop, or if he will dive out of the way for us off those softs. He's should have better pace than us on those soft tires. He's got a little bit more traction and grip. We are luckily starting to feel the effects of that fuel load lightening, so that those S's are a little easier. But we hop ahead, lap 20, there you go. Leclerc dives in. We never quite got close enough to him on pure pace. Just he was a little bit quicker, and Verstappen's about 4.7 seconds ahead of us. Hamilton about just over a second and a half behind. So we are settled back into our position of P2. We are currently riding the podium pretty nicely. Fair gap to manage. It's really going to come down to managing the tires the rest of the way. I don't think that we are going to have the pure pace to eat up 4 seconds or 4.6, so we're still reeling in a little bit. We jump ahead, lap 27. You see our teammate George Russell is out. We are 4.8 behind Verstappen there, but we've opened up a gap of 3 seconds to Hamilton behind us. We are now starting to feel the effects of that tire degradation on the mediums, so our pace is starting to come back to something that is roughly equal to what the hards are able to do. So we'll see where we're at as we cross start-finish line. Yeah, we lost about 3/10 through that slower section and about 1/10 to Hamilton. Got about 30% tire wear going already. But we are 8 laps from the end of this GP. We are comfortably in podium position, even if our tires fall off so severely that Hamilton catches us. There's still about another 3-second gap behind him. As you saw, our old boy Georgie sitting on the side of the road next to us, unfortunately. Another DNF for him. He's had a pretty rough go for a lot of the season. He's DNF'd a fair number of races, unfortunately. But we managed to just nurse our tires around the track. We are hopping ahead lap 35, the last sector here, setting up for our final lap of the race. Verstappen has a pretty hefty gap. 8 seconds now. He's showing very good pace on those hards. We've got about 3.7 seconds to Hamilton behind us. You can just barely see him in some of the camera shots as we go through, and an even bigger gap to the cars behind him. So our tire wear level and our pace has kind of equalized to Hamilton. So unless we make some major mistakes, as you see a minor one there, the rear end kind of kicked out on us, we will should be able to hold P2. Worst case scenario, P3, another podium finish hopefully for it. Well, I guess worst case scenario is if our engine blows up, which we've managed our ICEs decently. Gearboxes getting to the higher wear level. And that's unfortunate with our home race coming up next at Circuit of the Americas in Austin. A nice place where I spent a few years. Went to a MotoGP race there, went to a few concerts there. Great venue. I like the track a lot. So here we are into the stadium for one last time. Plenty of breathing room as we take it nice and easy through these last few corners. No big risks. Max Verstappen crosses the line ahead of us, race winner. And here we are, a little bit of a power slide through that last corner, but we cross the line. P2, another podium for us.
Nice work, you did well today. I think the boss will be happy with that one.
It was a magnificent race and a drive right out of the top draw to take the win for Red Bull today. Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I'd say it was down once again to good, consistent driving, nailing the corners, working to the track conditions and perfecting the team's strategies. They got all of these things right today and the results speak for themselves.
Red Bull are our winners today after showcasing some incredible driving. There's been a huge push from them lately to stay competitive with the other teams, and they're certainly proving themselves.
So there we are. Red Bull really has come on to form the last little section of this season, really picking up wins at a pretty decent clip. Obviously, Mercedes really opened up the gap early on, and you see Lewis Hamilton still picking up podiums and doing well, but it's fun to see us on the P2 stand.
Let's have a quick look at how the driver standings have changed. It's a great result for Lewis Hamilton, who moves further ahead at the top of the table. Now, let's discuss, Ants. Who would you say is a contender for driver of the day?
Nico Hülkenberg did an excellent job out on the track today. He played aggressively and knew exactly when to capitalise on openings throughout the race.
It's another clear win for Mercedes as they managed to secure the Constructors' title. An incredible performance for the whole team. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.
And there we are at P2. It looks like Hamilton has nearly got the Drivers' Championship locked up. But really, his only challenger can be his own teammate, Valtteri Bottas. Even if he DNFs the next 3 races and Verstappen, I believe, wins those races, he won't catch him. We're just kind of taking a peek and seeing what tire strategies were out there. You can see we got 19 points instead of 18 because we kept the fastest lap of the race there by about a tenth over
Great
Verstappen
work
at
out
the
there
end.
today. Let's have your thoughts. You must be thrilled to be up on the podium.
Yeah, it was a great race. The aero package is really good for the track, really helped out in those S sections and really low down drag, so we were able to get great straight line speed.
You're surpassing all expectations. Can anything or anyone stop you?
Not with the power unit we've got going. We've made a few upgrades to it, but it's still one of the strongest on the grid, and now our aero's helping out too.
Devin did much better in today's race than he did in qualifying. Were you expecting that?
I mean, you can never count him out, but that's why I want my team to keep me upgraded.
That race put you ahead of your old F2 teammate in the championship. How competitive are the two of you?
I mean, you really can't be an F1 driver without being competitive, but we're going to stay friendly.
Appreciate your time.
All right, so here we are at rivalry screen. We finished off that rivalry against George Russell, and we've built a pretty hefty lead against Sergio Perez in that first race. We might have wanted to pick a different rival, but still going bit by bit as far as what's in next to us. But we got our payout for our team goals as well, so a pretty hefty resource points payout, just over 2,000. So we should have a fair bit of stuff to play around with. We still have 2 developments to adapt in our chassis department, and I think we've basically only got majors left, majors and an ultimate on the current tree in our aero, and then I think we have some minors we can do in engine development.
Great work this weekend. It was fantastic to see you up on that podium.
I was very happy to be up on that podium, for sure. But we're back in the garage with our unfortunate teammate. Man, the DNFs are just killing him. I feel like he could be doing so much better. Carl is happy about our podium, telling me not to neglect R&D, which is like the biggest thing I worry about because this car has been a grind to get it back from the dead last section on the field. I'm going to take a peek at just kind of our driver stats so far. Wow, 4,392 miles already this season. That's further than I thought. So let's hop into the R&D area and take a peek. 4 more weeks remaining. We've only got 2 developments left to adapt. And as we did learn that purchasing new upgrades in those areas will be required to adapt as well, which is kind of a bummer, especially because the chassis development is really where we could use some help because we're still bottom of the grid in that regard. Red Bull's got a pretty commanding lead in the chassis department, much like typically real life. But as much as I don't want to be like double spending for some of these things, I'm gonna make a purchase in that, and I'm also gonna make a purchase in the gearbox durability department because this gearbox is pretty much screaming in pain, and I would like to not take a grid penalty at my home race, but hopefully have that gearbox make it the rest of the way through. So we're in a tough spot. I do think unless we have a pretty good, pretty stellar qualifying session at COTA, I will probably have to take a grid penalty because I think the gearbox is at 77%, if I'm not mistaken. The ICE is sitting at 28% for that last one that we were worried about. Should make it to the end of the season. But yeah, here we are, 77% on that gearbox. Every other gearbox is pretty beat up. So we're probably going to end up having to roll the dice here. I really don't want to take a grid penalty at my home race, especially with the recent form we've been on. I think we've got a very good shot at our first win at our home race, which would be just absolutely stellar. But that's where we're headed next, Austin, Texas, for COTA. 3 races left to go in the season. Let's see where we can shake out. Join me again next time, guys. I will see you all a little later.